if anybody's interested in learning how to do the sound booth, it would be wonderful, and you can get some training, and it keeps us from running up and down the stairs during meditation. Not that we don't need the exercise, but hey, it helps out a lot. And I know we've had people that have done it over and over again. Sandra's been, and she needs to be down here with her wife sometimes, so hey, keep the peace in the marriage. But I had to laugh a couple of weeks ago because I was doing the PowerPoints for Warren's service for last week, and I go to put the daily word in, and I double-check the date to make sure I got the right one, because you know sometimes that doesn't happen. But the word was authentic, and I had to laugh because I already had my message written for this week, and I had called it the authentic me. And I thought, well, that is serendipitous. That's a God thing. And when that happens, you know that you're on the right path, that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And it's really validating to yourself when that kind of thing happens. So last week when that was the authentic was the word for the daily word, I kind of wanted to go, can we save that till this week so it goes? But, you know, motivation works too. But anyway, when I was doing that, when I wrote this message, I was also thinking about the new year, you know. And in the new year, we set resolutions and we set goals for ourselves and everything. So it kind of led me to ask myself a few questions. And maybe you have asked yourself these questions too, but they are, who am I? What do I want? And what do I desire? And those questions, you know, were kind of deep for me, and I was thinking, well, that's a good way to start my goals and set some intentions for the new year. But what kept coming up when I was trying to, you know, kind of discern these things was the question that is, what is the authentic me? And I thought, well, that's my message. I'm a little hot now. That's my message for today, you know, is that idea that, you know, what is the authentic me? And how many people ask themselves that question, you know, what is authentically me? So I thought that today what we would do is ponder on that question, maybe try to define an answer for everybody. And the goal for my message, for this particular message, is for all of us to determine how we can live authentically. But let's begin with our statements of truth, shall we?
I am a child of God.
I am deserving of good in my life. I am accepting my good now. So my beginning questions for you, besides those 4 that I just gave you, are we currently living an authentic life? And what might authenticity look like in our lives? Perhaps it would mean that we always tell the truth. Can you say yes to that you always tell the truth?
Yes.
Always? And maybe we never do anything that would upset another person. Everybody does that? Yeah. That's another hard one, isn't it? I mean, it's like, come on. I didn't even mean to upset you, and you're getting all blown out of place. Or like I like to say to the teenagers, drama, drama, drama. You know? Or we just live from the perfectness that we are, and we're always expressing love. Can we say that about ourselves? All the time? Yeah. Okay, maybe we can't say yes to it today, you know, and maybe last week we couldn't say yes to these questions, and maybe last year we couldn't say yes to these questions, but this is a new day, you know, and it's a new year, and we can make a new me, each and every one of us. We can make an authentic me. And so that's kind of what we need to do. But let's break down the meaning of authentic a little bit, shall we? Authentic can mean authoritative, believe it or not. Meaning having or showing impressive knowledge about a subject, or having the confident quality of someone who is respected or obeyed by other people. Do you fit in either one of these definitions? Can you impress others with the knowledge that you have, and they look at you like you are an expert? Yes, there are people that are that way. And maybe it's your career that leads you to that. Maybe you are a nurse or a doctor, and you tell people what they need, or you're a nutritionist and you suggest foods for them or whatever. And people look at you as an authoritative person. You might have a degree or a doctorate, and utilize this expertise. This can make you an expert. And maybe you are in a position of authority, like you're a school administrator or teacher or a police officer, and everybody respects you. Or maybe not. Yeah. But the question is, are you respected by others? And maybe not everybody. But you see, respect can be an automatic effect of being authentic. Don't we? Don't we usually respect somebody that we think tells it like it is, or that is honest with us? We sit there and think, okay, you're the kind of person I want to be around. And respect is usually given between people until somebody gives us a reason not to respect them, right? And then we start moving into judgment in that place, don't we? Mm-hmm. And how can we move beyond the judgment to a place where we are respecting each other, where we are seeing the authentic person in each other? How can we move into that place of being that bridge of reciprocal energy? I love that bridge of reciprocal energy that we call the Christ within. Because that's where we're authentic. It's from that place of the Christ within. That's where we find all the things that we need to come forth on this earthly plane to be authentic. But we don't see that in this physical plane. We hide it. Now I know that there's tragic things that happen to us sometimes, that we lose respect for someone because they have abused us, or they have treated us badly, or we don't ever want them in our lives again. And I understand that. But again, we go back to building a wall that keeps us from beholding the Christ in another, a wall that keeps us from being as authentic as we are meant to be. And the only way around that, the only way to bring that wall down, is to release all that negative energy that you have around that situation or person. Because you don't want to hold on to those burdens. You don't want to be in that place where you have got something hanging on your neck as far as judgment or holding back that Christ within yourself, that authentic self of you. So it brings us full circle back to the truth, the capital T truth, and living from that place. And this is when we can ask ourselves, are we true to ourselves? Are we true to ourselves and what we truly believe? That's the question. And if we can answer yes to this, kudos, number one. But then we have to ask ourselves, do we feel worthy of accepting or believing what we know to be true? Because we can believe something to be the truth. We can come here to Unity Church and know the consciousness and know the truth of all of us, but are we willing to accept that for ourselves? Because only when we accept it for ourselves can we behold it in another. We have to move beyond that. And we know that we are worthy of accepting it, don't we? We just said the statements of truth, which is, I am a child of God, and as a child of God, we're worthy. We're worthy of everything. Everything in the universe we're worthy of. And last week, Reverend Warren spoke on that subject a bit, about being an authentic child of God. He didn't use the word authentic. I'm using that. But he talked about us being a child of God, and that we need to only conform to the original idea of who we are. Think about that. We only need to conform to the original idea of who we are. And who we are is that perfect expression of the child of God, of that Christ within. That's what we were born on this earth for. And now, in the physical sense, yeah, we all look different. But on the inside, we're all the same. But it becomes more difficult to look at that human existence and see beyond that, because we let our personalities or our characters get in the way. Now, being that character or personality can be a form of being authentic, because we can be true to who we are. You know, the comedian, the studious person, the introvert, the extrovert, all those things build our character, and those are what help make us authentic. But we're more than that. We're more than those characteristics or those personalities. So my question then is, are we being true to our true essence? Are we being true to our spirits of who we are? You know that when you do something that turns on your spirit, that you just feel really good about. You know when that happens. And can you say that you are true to that all the time? I think we have a hard time saying yes, that we are true to that all the time. We get bogged down with this human existence sometimes, don't we? Yes? No? Maybe? But because we can't say yes to this question, then we need to start thinking about living from that genuine side of ourselves. And we can cultivate that genuine side of ourselves by the authentic feeling of, anybody want to guess? Love. Yes, that authentic feeling of love. Because that changes everything. And it changes everything no matter what has happened. Living authentically includes holding genuine thoughts of love for everyone. You see, that's beholding the Christ in another. I always tell people, they'll tell me stories all the time. I'm so mad at that person, or I'm upset, or how do I live in this universe and be the Christ and yet know that they are doing that to me behind my back? How do I do that? We hear these different things, and I always say, send them love. Because if you can send love, then you are living from your Christ essence. And what happens when that happens? It reciprocates. Janelle's back there doing hand signals, and yes, it does. It comes back to you, and they begin to feel the love, and they begin to see the love within themselves. And you're not trying to send love to fix them. You're sending love to help you be that authentic self that you want to be. And that's what's important. That's what's powerful. Now, I know sometimes something happens. Maybe you owe somebody, or someone owes you, let's just say that. Someone owes you some money, or they owe you a favor. And you begin to build this revenge wall, I call it, because they are not paying you back, and you know they're never going to pay you back. And you call them up to ask for a favor, and they're too busy to even give you the time of day. And you build the wall a little bit higher and a little bit higher. And we have this negative thoughts and feelings going on around this person because you feel like they owe you. Well, the number one thing you need to learn is no matter what you give, do not believe anybody has to give you something back. Because that's not going to get you anywhere. Yeah. Give freely. That's what we say in unity. That's why we have the prosperity bowls at the door. Give freely from your heart. And that's what you should do with everything you do. Somebody says they want to borrow money, say, no, I'll give you money. But don't loan them money unless you don't, if you don't have it, don't do that, of course. But the thing is that sometimes that happens for us too. Somebody has loaned us money, and we know we owe them, but we haven't had the cash to pay them back. We kind of do this avoid thing. Oh, God, there they are. Better get out of here real quick. Because we start feeling like we don't want to be confronted, or we start feeling like, oh my gosh, I owe them and I haven't paid them. Think about the burdens that we just put on ourselves in that silliness. And the minute you wipe it away, it's freeing. It lifts so much. So all we have to do is keep that wall of animosity and that negative wall from building. And the wall comes down when you send love, when you speak well of someone, and when you show them respect. Can you do that? No matter who they are? Can you do that? Because the wall won't grow if you do that. Because this changes everything in you. You begin to live from your authentic self and the essence of spirit. You. Do you see how that can impact you? Yeah. Because it's kind of like the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. You see them as you want to be seen. And we can always say, see them as God sees them. Because if you switch that in your head, that when I'm looking at someone, I'm looking through the eyes of God, what are you going to do? You're not going to sit there and think negative thoughts, are you? No, it clicks something in your head that turns on the spirit within you, and you start living from that true essence of spirit, that authentic self of you. And this works whether you're the debtor or not. Because it's all working through us, as us, to help us, and for the good of all. And that shift in awareness never fails. It will never fail. We become what we focus on. And I'm going to focus on good. How about you? Everybody want to focus on good? Yes. When we begin to see that shift in our lives is when we begin to feel validated. That's when we begin to realize that we are that child of God. And sometimes I think the reason why we don't live from our authentic self is because we do want that validation. It goes back to being a little kid, you know, and your parents are sitting there praising your sister or brother, telling the world how brilliant they are, how great they are, and you're sitting there just going, excuse me, hello, what about some of that for me? And what happens is you stay in that mode as you get older, and you're still waiting for that validation for somebody else to make you feel good. That's where we get in those crazy relationships and all that kind of stuff. And all we have to do is validate ourselves by seeing them as you want to be seen. I love this from Charles Fillmore from Jesus Christ Heals, the text, Jesus Christ Heals. He uses Professor Einstein. He says, Professor Einstein was considered the greatest mathematical genius of our time. The scientific world does not connect his insight into scientific principles with the religious life, but he freely stated that he worshiped God. He said, the voice of God is from within. Something within me tells me what I must do every day. And for Einstein, God is as valid as a scientific argument. Now think about this for a minute. This book came out forever ago, you know. I don't know, it's one of the early ones. If the scientific world would, you know, I mean, come on, they loved Einstein. Einstein was like the coolest guy ever. But if they would have latched onto that statement, instead of just looking at all his mathematical stuff and all his scientific stuff and everything, where would we be right now? We would have already had that bigger church because there would be everybody coming to unity. But the thing about it is, people went to the scientific and didn't even look at what some of these scientists were saying. And he says right there, the voice of God is from within. Something within me tells me what I must do every day. And that is validating for ourselves too. Not just for Einstein. He was stating the obvious, and we know that here in Unity. But he believed and heard the voice of God, and he told people that he heard the voice of God and that he believed. Do we validate God in our lives? Do we tell everybody that we believe in listening to the voice of God? Do we tell everybody that we believe in those messages that are being sent to us? Because the minute we start talking about what we think and believe, we are going to validate ourselves because we're living from that true essence. I kind of blew the minds of a couple of people the other day because I was talking to some people that don't come to Unity, and this happened to me a couple weeks ago. And to this moment, I haven't totally processed the whole thing, but I was driving down the street over there by Johnson Park, and I saw this little tiny terrier. He was running around in the street. But then I saw a little terrier on the ground, ran over already. Yeah. And I just, you know, it was like it kind of like slowed down to stop. But this other terrier was jumping around and acting happy and free. And as I went to the stop sign, I turned around and looked, and because I looked in my rearview mirror, I couldn't see the puppy jumping around anymore. And I only saw the one that was dead on the street. And then I realized what I had seen is the spirit, that dog had just died, and the spirit of the dog had just been set free. And I saw the essence of that dog. And I told somebody this, and I thought, oh, they're going to think I'm wacky, you know, because they have no idea what we believe here. But, you know, the minute I said it, I felt the essence of myself aligned with the Spirit of God, and I knew that to be the truth. In that moment, I know that other dog was really the spirit of that dog setting free. And it was powerful. And I know there's more message there for me, but, you know, it's sad for the other little dog, but I went down the street about 3 blocks and then stopped and then came back, and somebody had already scooped up that little dog and moved it and, you know, put it over to the side. And, of course, that other dog wasn't around because that was the spirit of the dog. But you know, sometimes we have to validate ourselves by speaking the truth we know. And in that moment when I told those people that, I knew that I was validated for what I believe and for what I know that the Spirit of God is, that it moves in through us and in all living things. And that's what we have to do. We have to not be ashamed or afraid to speak what we know as truth, as capital T truth, because we all know it. We all have that essence within us longing to come forth. And all we have to do is share that. And that, you see, is that authentic living that we want in our lives. Fillmore also says this about Einstein on the subject of spiritual realization. Einstein once said, "Every man knows that in his work he does best and accomplishes most when he has attained a proficiency that enables him to work intuitively. That is, there are things that we come to know so well that we do not know how we know them. Perhaps we live best and do things best when we are not too conscious of how and why we do them." Isn't that powerful? And see, I think that is us living as the essence of God on this earthly plane. I think that is where we are living from our authentic self. And it's in that where we become comfortable. We all do things well. I know these guys play their music and they do it with ease and grace, and they just get into it, and it fills us up with the Spirit of God and joy and stuff. It's the same thing. You know, for some people it's mowing the yard, believe it or not. For other people it's weeding in their garden and getting that dirt down in their nails. I mean, everybody has something that allows the Spirit of God just to easily move in and through you and just to be you. And that's what that's all about. That intuitive force is that essence of God. And it is that inner consciousness of authenticity, of being genuine, of being true. The supreme realization of man is his unity with God. Jesus had this realization and proclaimed it before there was any manifestation when he told his followers, "I and the Father are one." And that's a quote from Jesus Christ Heals. But we know that we can do what Jesus did. So if we want to understand our authentic self, we need to desire to live from that place of awareness. We need to claim the oneness of God within us, and we have to live from that knowing, as Jesus once did. And we would be affirming our authentic existence on this plane. You see, another synonym for authentic is real. I love that word because everybody throws it around. What is real? What is real in your world? What are you claiming is real? And what is most important for you to live a real life? I think we can all say that this lectern's real, the walls are real, the chairs that you're sitting on are real. Each one of us are real, right? And that's on that physical plane. But what are you claiming as real with a capital R? You know? What are you claiming as real in your life that is beyond the physical? I claimed that the spirit of that dog is being real in my world. And there are things that happen that we can claim as real. I love Myrtle Fillmore. She is the co-founder of Unity. And she wrote a bunch of responses to letters over the years, and they compiled some of these into the book, Myrtle's Healing Letters. And she gives us some great insight. If you ever get a book, just leave it on your nightstand, because no matter what's happening in your life, if you just open it up and read it, you'll find the perfect thing. To know how to hear with the mind, and to discern and discriminate between the true and real and worthwhile, and that which is mere foolishness and the clatter of elements not yet organized under law. And to realize that one may be obedient and receptive without giving up one's right to freedom of choice and action is real accomplishment. That's when we live authentically. When we don't give up our choices just to give them up, but we live in that place that we know is true, what we truly believe. And we have to figure that out. We have to figure out what we truly believe in order to live from that authentic self. We do this and we gain some insight into that through meditation and prayer. You know, and by taking that time, we can learn to turn on that intuitiveness that we already have. It's when we allow ourselves to be in the flow and allow ourselves to just be in the moment, the now moment. And as we take time to contemplate, our consciousness is continually alert to all we need or desire, because that aligns with God. And God is always on fire, ready to give you what you need or desire. Always. And that's aligning with truth, and that's aligning with God. Realize that only good exists in you and in your world. That the power you contacted in the silence may have opportunity to multiply and increase your blessings. Who doesn't want their blessings multiplied and increased? I do! Give thanks that you have already received the good for which you look to God in silence, feeling the assurance. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. From Isaiah. And that's the realization of turning on to that authentic self. That's when we begin to understand that power of judgment in the sense that it is the power of wisdom. Not judging people, but having that inner wisdom to be able to do all that we need to do. And that allows us to live authentically, that power of wisdom. Because when we live from that power of wisdom, we have the ability to evaluate, discern, and apply what we know. Who doesn't want to do that? Yeah, and that power of wisdom is within each one of us. Again, that churning in your stomach when you know you're not doing something right. Yeah, that's the power of wisdom saying, hey, stop for a minute, think about this. Maybe you don't want to go there. But it can also be that easiness, that ease and grace that you have to know that you really are supposed to be doing something. So sometimes it's difficult to know what is real. Because there's so many things out there in the world that aren't real, aren't they? They're fake, they're not true, they're not real at all. And I know we've all experienced fake friends, right? Which is really an oxymoron when you think about it. Friends doesn't go. And there are many people out there trying to scam us into the perfect vacation property, or the perfect way to get rich. Or scamming us to get any information about our bank account that they can possibly trick us into, right? But we know that all of that is not the capital T truth of each and every one of those people. Those callers or those companies, that's not the truth of them. The truth of them is that they are a child of God and they have that essence within them just like we all do. They just haven't been awake to it yet. And maybe if they have, they tried to build that wall of animosity to justify where they're at in doing that. But when these scams can happen to us, we begin to feel leery or distrust people, which again takes us away from that authentic self. We no longer feel like we just, want to be who we are because we're afraid that somebody really doesn't want to be our friend. You're a little too friendly for me. This is not the place to be, by the way, if you think that, because we are all super friendly. It's a handshake at first, but you saw what happened during the meeting group. Turns into hugs. Like, oh, my friend forever. And you are. We're true with that, really. But it does make you a bit leery of some people or some phone calls that you get, Oh, yeah, I got $1 million for you. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe it is. But anyway, that is the opposite of of being authentic. And those people doing that is the opposite of having wisdom. In Mysteries of John, Fillmore writes, the human part of us wants to cling to things visible and to other people. But as the impersonal spiritual Christ finds expression, we gradually cease to lean upon these material limitations. That's when no longer does it matter what chair we've been sitting in for the last 30 minutes because my talk is going on. But it no longer matters what the room temperature is. It has to do with the idea that you're getting that spiritual essence of turning on what you need turned on. And that's where we want to live from no matter where we go. And look at everything from that place of that spiritual Christ. And you see, that's the only way we can move forward. That's the only way we can strive to develop that spiritual Christ self. And another bit from Fillmore says, the only way to abide in cosmic consciousness is to develop Christ consciousness, the abiding realization of oneness with God mind and of its ideas as directing all the faculties in fulfilling the divine purpose in being. Don't you love that? Because when we develop those spiritual faculties, they become so strong and so vital and so substantial that we are able to connect to the divine all the time. We are able to connect to God mind in a blink of an eye. And that is powerful. That takes us beyond this physical reality into that idea of the essence of God and all that there is. And when we develop that wisdom, we know and we are able to discern and stay focused on what is really real. And where does this ability lie? Everybody should know the answer to this. It lies within each of us. That's right, as our authentic self. Our authentic self is the longing within us which desires God. And when we align with that God mind, we align with people as God mind. The minute we turn that on within ourselves, we're turning it on to be in God mind with everyone here, everyone that we encounter. And when we do that, then we align with those divine ideas and those qualities of being and truly with the essence of God. And then we'll know exactly what we want and exactly how we want to express as our authentic selves. Last little bit from Myrtle. She says, know that every day physical life can and should be inspired and happy and purposeful. Sorry. And right here, if we just lived by this first bit of the line, every day of our physical life can and should be inspired, happy, and purposeful. If we lived just following those three words, what would it be? Total bliss, wouldn't it? Yet not strained and tense, and that it is never necessary to do that which is harmful or weakening to any of the functions or organs in accomplishing what is right and just and worthwhile and expedient. That's how we discern how we want what we want in our lives, how we want to live. We ask ourselves those questions. We try to stay focused on those aspects. Daily declare that your spiritual life and world, your mental life and world, your physical life and world are unified, and that you are expressing harmoniously the ideas of the Christ mind on these three planes. So when we align our spiritual, our mental, and our physical life with Christ's mind, we have accomplished all we need to be that perfect expression of the authentic me. Thank you for being here today. God bless you.